Happy Sunday. How's everybody doing? Sure everybody's watching football. My team is losing, so it's all good, man. You see it on there. Talk about a little bit about AWS System Manager. Whew, man, been a long week for me, but I can't complain. So I'm sure a few people will drop in. So I'm trying to think. So I went live a couple times this week. Let me see. Am I gonna bring up the thumbnails? I usually talk about what I went live on this week. Um, so I did the electric grid, which was interesting. The pros and cons of the electric grid. we Our electric grid gonna go down. Somebody gonna attack us and it's gonna go down. So the other thing was what was the big one was the Uber hack. So I kind of walked through that from a second half was a cybersecurity perspective. We talked about the MFA and some other issues with that. So just go check those videos off. So I think I'm just gonna get right into it. Like I said, I'm trying to get motivated on a Sunday, but Monday's almost here. Shout out to Game Over. Glad you could join me. So yeah, so I talked about the Uber hack and the electric grid. I did a video every day this month, so I was getting it in. So just go check those videos out. If you got any questions about them, just put them on the comments. I try to answer every comment on all my videos. So hopefully you having a good Sunday. Game Over. So like I said, everybody know I'm on my AWS kick. So just looked at AWS System Manager. Let me bring that up. And part of the System Manager down here is the Node Manager piece here. So those are the services we're going to go over in the slideshow. So just fired it up. So like once again, I'm studying for my certification. So I passed 4, so I'm trying to get, I think, 3 more. So been going over that SysOps, and the SysOps, they actually give you labs they give you 3 labs you actually have to do. So you got to be on the book smart, then you got to be on the lab game. So I've been trying to lab super hard. So once again, let's spin it up. Once again, if you got any cybersecurity questions, just drop them in the comments. We can go over them, chat, pivot to something else, and pivot back. It doesn't bother me at all. So let's fire this up. There it is. Let me back up a little bit. So once again, we're going over the system manager piece, specifically the node management you see at the top. So that's really where we're going to hit, the node management piece at the top. Let's see. I closed a couple windows. Let me make sure I didn't. Actually, no, there it is. Close something down. I need it. Struggle streaming already. So see if you can see that. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger. But at the top is the node management. That's where we're going. We just saw it actually on the screen. In there is fleet management, compliance, system inventory, hybrid activation. You can drop the agent on your Linuxes and Windows on your prem, and it'll just send that information up in AWS Cloud, right? So you can get to the that management console can help you on-prem or off-prem. Session Manager, which I really like, and we're going to go in and look at them on the screen too. Run command, State Manager, Patch Manager, and Distributor. So those are the services we're going to go over. So I should have made that a little bit. Everybody know I do government work, fair work. So even though it's in AWS, even though it's in the cloud, when you use a particular service, you need to make sure it's compliant, has a security compliance for what you're doing it for. So I looked out there. System manager is now compliant with FedRisk High, an authorization management program. And that's actually called FedRAMP. high baseline with fair and high compliance, you can use AWS System Manager to gain operational insight and safely take action on workloads in AWS Gov Cloud and regional authorization boundary. So on a high level, that just means you can use this for government work, anything, nuclear, anything in the government. I do a lot of IRS work, which is medium HIPAA. So there's a lot of things you can use this service for. So you need to do that research because Amazon's got a ton of services and they all are not at the same security level, right? So AWS enable cloud operations through system manager. Managers offer a comprehensive set of operational capabilities, manage cloud and on-prem. It helps you automate operational tasks, group resources, troubleshooting. You can also implement pre-approved change workflows. The security appliance to AWS system managers access as part of multiple AWS compliance program. Once again, you can do FedRAMP High, SOC, IRP, KSM, OSPAR. These two big ones, high trust CSF and HIPAA, right? So you can do hospital work with them. So we just want to make sure the double check the service we are using is compliant with the data we're going to use it on, right? So once again, that's the cybersecurity piece. So what I set up real quick before here was two EC2s Linux and two different availability zones, which are data centers, right? I think they're 100 miles apart. So I got one EC2 and 2A and one EC2 and 2B. So when we go through and look at those resources, right, we know they're in two different data centers. We can link them up. And two, I usually do two because if you use automation and start using automation, it doesn't matter if it's 2 or 200, right? If you can automate that process, right? So that's just me practicing for the sysops. And, you know, when I start doing stuff from security engineer standpoint, right? So how would that actually work on the job? So once again, it just really says that we talk about the fleet manager capabilities, AWS. It has unified interface. Experience helps you with remotely managing your nodes run on AWS or on-prem. You can view the health and performance of your entire server fleet from one console. You can actually gather data from individual nodes and perform common troubleshooting tasks. This includes RDP, of course, for Windows, viewing folders and content, Windows registry. Of course, I'm a Linux guy. I did everything on Linux. Shout out to Keep It Techie. That's my guy. I would tell you to subscribe, but everybody subscribe to me. Brian already subscribed to Keep It Techie. Yeah, my team was losing Keep It Techie, so I just went live, man. I just got tired of watching my team. Shout out to Brother Michael. So we're just going to go through some of the service inside System Manager on my AWS kit. So these are the services we're going to go over. Fleet Manager, Compliance, Inventory, Session Manager, and Run Manager. System Manager you can run on FedRAMP High. So Keep It Tech, you know, when you do that government work, you got to make sure those services used are approved to be able to work on certain data classification. So System Manager can do FedRAMP High. You can do SOC, HIPAA, High Trust for, you know, hospitals. This is what I set up this morning. I set up a VPC between two data centers, two public subnets. I got an EC2 on one and EC2 on that. Shout out to Keep It Techie. I'm running Linux only. So I need to start doing a little more Windows work. But we just read about the Fleet Manager. So Fleet Manager helps you remotely manage your infrastructure. You can check status of your fleet. You can happily identify issues. You can take action. You can connect remotely. You can view reports, centralized troubleshooting, automate remediation, and easy and secure remote access. What up, Melissa Jane? Shout out to Melissa Jane. Go check her out. So let's go look at that on the console. So there's our Fleet Manager. Once again, I got those two nodes we just looked at. One is in each data center. So when you look at your fleet, right, basically you have the system manager agent on these two EC2s. That makes it visible for your fleet, right? We got 2 or 200. Like my last client, they had 400 VMs, right? So when you brought it up, right, so some of it was production, some of it was test, some of it was QA. Some of it was different divisions, right? So you can manage all those nodes, Linux or Windows, all in one console, right? So that's the cool part. So, like they said, we can drill down into one, see what's on it, see its version of Linux. Make that a little bigger for me and the old people in the back of the room. So right there, shout out to Kibitech. We run on our Amazon Linux. Tells you the version, tells you the IP address of that, right? What kind of roles you got running for security, file systems. So it's fetching some data. So like it says, so you can drill down at each machine, right? We don't have any keys blocking it down or encryption, right? Users and groups. So we're looking at a specific EC2 and a specific subnet. It tells you the admin, Apache, right? We're running some other stuff on it. So 9 times out of 10, when you spin it up on your fleet, all your Unix boxes and all your Windows boxes are going to be set up the same, right? So you can run automation across all those different Unix and Windows boxes, right? So we're just going to touch again on System Manager and specifically the Node Manager. So once you get your agent on there, you look at your fleet. The fleet is just each individual box, right? So let's drill down. So once again, the user, you can look at the groups. It's fetching data right there. So once again, you get your groups. So this is what you can use from an operational management standpoint, just straight GUI to handle different fleets, right? So as a security engineer, I will go in, one of my jobs would be look at the groups, check the membership, make sure they don't have too many permissions on each one of these groups, right? Because you got to do least privilege, drilled in certain users, see their user ID, their GUIDs, their home directory, see what shell they're running, right? No login, which is cool. No login means I log in as an operator, then it's called sudo. I'm gonna switch to this user, right? Because this user is a service account. It's usually running jobs in the background. So you don't want hackers to be able to log directly into them. They have to hack somebody's account, then switch over to them, right? So that's security information. So that's the fleet manager. We just, like I said, we just touching on. Drop anything in the chat if you had anything. Like, so I'm just touching it at a high level. Once again, I'm getting my AWS search, so I'm learning too. So that was the fleet, right? So I'll hit the fleet again. I just put 2 servers out there. This could be 400 server or even 1,000 for some of your bigger companies, right? So let's see. Let's hit go back to here. So we were hitting our fleet. We checked the status of some servers, checked the identity, looked at groups. There was no issues, right? We didn't need to perform actions, but those are some things we do. We looked at the report. We looked at some of the users, right, for automation. So that's what you would use your fleet for. Compliance automatically aggregates display operational, eliminate the needs for you to navigate across AWS console. You're checking the compliance of each one of those EC2s or resources, whatever they were. So with the compliance, it takes your log files from CloudTrails. You can remediate stuff in AWS config, look at software inventory, trusted advisor, personal health, performance and availability alerts of the system manager for your particular fleet, right? So once again, we're talking about the fleet. So this is the compliance part. So this compliance dashboard tells you what's in compliance. We got 2 things in compliance. We got 4 things that are not in compliance, right? So compliance could be, once again, we do federal compliances. Some's not encrypted. Some's got too many permissions, right? So this can give you compliance over your fleet, right? And 2, when you get audited, I work with a lot of auditors and insurance guys. They want to come in and make sure you know the compliance of your fleet and your individual EC2s or Windows boxes, right? So this is where you can come to and look at that, all right? And 2 is, and we're going to do another thing is, when something becomes out of compliance, it sends an email to the security team, right? So we're going to start automating a lot of this, right? I'm listening like, all good, game over. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm trying to do a little more lab and let me know how you like it. So I'm trying to show a little more labbing on here. So that's the compliance, right? So once again, we do Fed work. It could be HIPAA compliance, FERPA. We were looking at the grid. It could be DOE, Department of Energy compliance. AWS works with all those government things, so you can set the compliance type to what you want it to be. So I just did a simple, basic one, but you could do any of those other government agencies, right? So once again, let's go check out the compliance on there. So we in our AWS System Manager. Once again, we're handling the node feed. We're gonna hit the compliance. We got the compliance check. So once again, we got 4 things out of compliance. We got 2 patches, right? So these are those 2 nodes, right? So if you look at those are just really 2 nodes. They're just showing you what they're in non-compliant of, right? So let's scroll up here. Let's hit non-compliant. Right, it'll show you those boxes and what they're non-compliant with. Let's toggle up here. Those are the resources, right, which is our EC2s. Let's look at the rules. What are we non-compliant with, right? So now we got 19 things we're compliant, and I patched it. So it patched 922 things this morning when I was getting my system up. So let's look at the non-compliant. So these are the resources, right? These are the document numbers for what is non-compliant. So let's drill into one and see what's non-compliant. So put it up in another window. We're going to talk about the state manager later on, but for this association, it says the AWS update SSSM agent failed to update, right? So that's why we're not in compliant. We're running an older version of that, right? So if we got audited, one of the things of security, got to keep all your versions updated, right? Because when you don't update, there could be security vulnerabilities or somebody can hack you, right? So it said it failed to update. So let's drill over to the resource. So it shows you which resources fail. The parameters, version. That's the version of the document it ran and the history of when it ran, right? So let's do description. So let's look up that document for SSM agent. Let's see what's going on in that document, right? So now so this shows you the nitty gritty of actually what that document agent is trying to update. So we can look in there. Once again, it shows you the description, update the SSM agent. That's what failed. What's the content? So it's looking for the version. It ran a PowerShell script. That's probably why it failed. That's a Windows Windows thing. So I think it failed because I didn't lock it down to Linux. So I actually ran a Windows version and a Linux version. So that's operator error on me. So, but that lets you kind of see what you can do from a compliance standpoint and what it's looking for, right? So we're just kind of drilling down and once again, from a security point of view, I'm a security analyst. I would go out and look at and see kind of what failed. Really is what version are we on, right? This really is probably more of an operations thing because their task is to make sure we up to date on our versions. Is that Amazon? Shout out to Keep It Tech Ubuntu. Keep It Tech run a million versions of Linux. I'm either going to run Ubuntu or Red Hat or Amazon. I only really mess around with about 3. But once again, this can go through and update it. And 2, remember, we hit the button. It updated those 2 Linux versions, or if we had 200, right? So we don't have to manually do it, right? We can hit that agent and it will go out there and do it for us. So cool thing, it failed. We know why it's failed. I'm pretty sure it was trying to update a Windows version. That's on me, right? So once again, that's the compliance updater, keeping everything in compliance. So let's look at the inventory. Again, that's what we're looking at. It showed you the 4 things that were invalid and the 2 things. Those just the resources. Then we looked at the individual updates for each individual thing it was trying to update, right? So let's look at inventory. AWS System Manager collects information about instances of software installed, helping you understand your system configuration. You can collect data about applications, file, network, server roles, updates, right? So the inventory is going to show you what's on your application and what's actually installed on your Linux box, right? And sometimes that could be a task because as a big organization, people installing stuff and update. Shout out to my programmers, Citizen Lou's not here, and Max the Million. And so sometimes the development teams take it on themselves to install software that's not approved, right? So this is gonna help us figure out if there's not approved software. So if you look at the bottom, it shows you what was disabled, what's enabled. Over there, it shows you inventory coverage by type, application file. So we can dig into it. And true is, if it's not approved, we have automation script once again and send the security team an email for non-approved software, right? And we're going to get that to a later lab. We got to figure out how it works before we automate it, right? So that's the inventory. Let's dig. Let's go to the inventory module. See what it looks like. It looks like that because that's actually the screenshot. So this is the dashboard. What software we got enabled, what software is disabled. It's a brand new instance, so it's all going to be able. What's on there? Got the AWS application, detailed information, right? So let's drill down. We can click on the detailed information. Oh, not on this screen, we can't. But so that tells us we got Linux 2, and I had an older version of Ubuntu. Actually, it's running on a different VPC. Shout out to Keep It Linux. I mean, Keep It Tech. I was working on my Ubuntu Linux a little bit. It was giving me problems though. What top applications do I have running on my fleet? Remember, we looked at the fleet, so it tells you got Ubuntu, Bash, different software. I'll embed it in Linux, right? I'm a Linux guy, so that's showing you those different things. Shows you the count of what's going on, right? So this shows us once again the associate ID, the host, which is that management on there, and two is just a high level inventory. Right, we can set up a more detailed inventory and sync it up to our online CMDB, which keeps track. So there's a lot of things you can do with it. So we just checking out some of the basics of inventory. Right, so this shows you based on installation count, AWS component excluded. Right up here, top 5 OSs. Only really got 2. So what we got enabled or disabled in the components. A lot of times too, if somebody's having a problem with a certain box, you can see if some software is disabled for some reason. Tech did it, a sysop or DevOps disabled some for something, right? And sometimes it might be causing problems in another part of your organization, right? So once again, that's we in the node management. That was the inventory. Session manager. This is one of my favorite ones. There were actually security vulnerability in SSH. It was actually downloading malware. So system manager provides a browser-based interactive shell. See our browser-based where you can remote desktop into managing an instance in the cloud or on-prem or edge device without the need to open up inbound ports or managing secure shell keys, which are SSH keys, or spinning up a bastion host. It also respects AWS Identity Manager, the policies. And you can actually log in the S3 bucket, CloudWatch logs, right? And that being able to audit it, right? So when you do it, it shows you your instance IDs. We saw those 2 we were looking at. Once again, we're going to shell into one and do a little work. So we're going to shell into it. That's out without setting up a bastion host. I don't have to worry about keys. What happens is when you do it through the GUI, you're actually on the back-end network of Amazon, right? So it doesn't have to open up all the needed ports you would need to come in the internet. And it's a lot more secure because I'm on the back end of AWS, right? So I don't have a lot of open ports. Nobody can attack my bastion server because I don't have one, right? So let's look at that. Let's see, session manager. Start a session. Those are the 2 nodes we looked at before. I got one in each data center. All right, so just straight shell in there. A little LS. PS minus EF. Let's see some services running. Uh, See the SSM agent right there? That's my SSM agent. For some reason, my SSM's not working right. I need to come and check and see if, look at my SSM agent and see it running. There's my CloudWatch agent at the top looking for logs, keeping track of logs. My CloudWatch agents lets me push logs out of this box. So a lot of times if we're troubleshooting as an engineer, right, we're going to get in here and say what services are running, what services are not running. And sometimes we just need to update those servers, right? I could run a Yum update or something, or check up through things. HTTPDs, once again, to give my man Keep It Techie, that's the web server we got running. All right. So I need to get with my man Citizen Lou and put some code out here, but that's something else. But just doing basic server stuff, just minor checking, right? So if you're working at help desk, shout out to Kev Tech. If you're a help desk guy, you might need to log on and just check some services to make sure they're running before you send the ticket to DBA or security engineer. You might want to just make sure some basic stuff's running. So you would use session manager and system manager to do that, right? And once again, we don't have a bastion host, so we can let's see, looking at the services running. Let's do PS minus EF pipe Brett dash out in lower case. Let's look at all our SSM stuff, right? So see at the bottom, that's just stuff that's with our SSM agent, right? So we got our Amazon SSM agent running, we got our SSM worker running, right? So when you run your agent, there's two workers running, right? So we would just PS by correct. Sometimes you can have 500 services running, right? So as a help desk guy, you want to have a couple things in your skill set, to watch what you just need to look at, right? So we can say, okay, those two agents are running. So worst case, we can start them. Once again, that's the web server right there, the HTTPD. So let's look at some of those services. So there we got our HTTPD running in the foreground, straight Apache. So we know our Apache servers running. Let's go look at our log file for that. Just do a little movement around. We're gonna do the var cd www. That's for the web server. HTML. All right, ls. Right. So make an L long. So just some basic stuff, how to move around in Linux. Shout out, I don't know if Keep It Techie there. He got a free Linux course. It's nice. I peeked at it. I'll probably take it when I get a little more time to brush up on my Linux. I don't do it as much as I used to. So go check him out. He has a bomb Linux course. If you're trying to get into cybersecurity or just into the game, basic Linux skills, you're going to need that to move around and figure out what's going on with that box. So once again, I look at this, I frown a little bit because all my Apache server stuff is running as root, right? So if somebody attacked this box and took it over, they will be running as root. That is bad by PBO. I've been in the game too long to let that happen. So I got to go check out when I spun this up. This should be running as Apache or some other user as root. So PBO gives itself an F today. So, but once again, just working on a few things, labbing every day. Shout out to the one. I try to get my lab on every day. So that's session manager. Once again, I don't need to set up a bastion host. I just need to set up some basic things, get in the session manager, and I can get to work in it. Once again, it's much more secure. I don't have a lot of ports open up to the regular internet, right? Keeping our attack surface small. So we'll talk about that on another show. So let's just keep it moving. Just touching on run manager. So let's see what our run manager is doing. Provides you with safe, secure remote management. Instances of scales without logging into your server, replacing bastion host and remote PowerShell. Provides a simple way for automating common administrative tasks, user management, software patches. Once again, it uses the IAM permissions. So I can give a DevOps or a programmer run just for a couple development instances or for a certain VPC environment, right? I don't have to give him everything, right? But I can give him enough control so he can do his job without bothering me. No, I'm just right? So let's look at what that actually does for us. We were just looking at the run where you would immediate run. You're going to use a state manager, right? Is when you can schedule something up. So it's basically what you do with the run command, you just scheduling it up, right? Then you put it on a specific, they call them run documents, and I can either run them on Windows, Linux, or whatever version of OS I want to run it on, right? So once again, you got your state manager, your system manager there with your documents. You can run a little automation, and once again, running in different accounts, different EC2s. Of course, those could be Windows 2, right? So it's just really running a run on a schedule, right? A lot of times I want to run stuff in the morning doing our batch windows at night. Most big companies from like midnight to 4 is where you run your backup jobs, your copy jobs. If you sending stuff out to other customers, right? So they usually give you a 6-hour window. So if I want to run certain commands to update some software or move some software around or load some new software to connect, right? I can set this up on State Manager and run it at batch at night. So that's what you want to do for that, right? So let's look at that once again. My State Manager. Once again, we're just in the node, family. There's a lot of stuff in there. So we're just going to do our State Manager there. So there's our documents. What documents can you run? How you can run them, right? So So this is one. Shout out to Keep It Techie and Tam. You can actually run an Ansible playbook inside your AWS. I actually should have. We're gonna set some up so we can run that for real. So Ansible playbook is just a bunch of instructions you can run and do a certain task, right? So you can actually schedule that up to actually run specified tags. I can say, okay, in my development box, anything tag web development that Ansible run book would run on it and do those commands, right? So basically, that's all it says. And two is I could put the output in S3, or if I didn't want to do tags, usually I'm gonna do tags because if I'm doing something, I'm gonna do it on 10 or 15 boxes, right? I don't want to manually do one, but sometimes I might want to test it on one box, right? So if I want to test a run book on one, which is basically just a set of instructions, choose instance manually, right? So I could go pick which instances I want to run it on. I could schedule it, like we said, at night or run it right now, right? So that's the benefits of using that and batching those run stuff up and scheduling for a later date, right? So and so we're like I said, we're just touching on it, and this will be what a junior cloud engineer would do, right? We're setting up some updates. I messed up the web server running as root, right? So we do some scripts where we change the ownership, change the group, put other people in the group, right? So I can actually test that up and have that run at night at 4 a.m., right? And get all that security locked down. So security looked at it. We're going to look at this later. They got incident manager at the top. So incident manager, I could say the web server's not running right. These are the things that need to be fixed. And in here, right, they can point it back to the incident manager and said, okay, we need to fix all these security vulnerabilities. PBO was lacking today. He got stuff running as root, right? So we need to get that fixed, right? So we would set up an Ansible playbook here. Shout out to, or Chef, but shout out to Keep It Techie and Tam about the Ansible life. So you can set up the Ansible playbook, get all that fixed, right? Boot it up. Then in the morning, security could look at it and see if all those vulnerabilities and security items I set up got fixed, right? So that's one of the things you can actually use State Manager for, right? Run is instantaneously, right? State Manager, we grouping it up and gonna schedule it at later. And that's usually most of the times, right? We're gonna test it on one. Then once again, we working for big companies because we're trying to get big bags. So we're gonna have to do it on 20 boxes or so. So we create a State Manager. Once again, put you up on the Ansible playbook, get all that stuff fixed, right? So labbing every day, trying to get a little better every day. So that's what we use state, right? Let me go through that. What's Patch Manager? Helps you select and deploy operating system and software patches automatically across large group of cloud or on-premise instances and edge devices. Through Baseline, you can set rules to auto-approve select categories of patches, such as operating system, high severity patches, specify a list of patches. You can also schedule maintenance windows for your patches so that you only apply during a preset time. Right. So Amazon and their software, Amazon Linux or their other stuff, they need to patch it for their security bugs or they're just upgraded to a new version, right? So you use Patch Manager to schedule that in the window. Once again, we usually patch stuff in our night window, right? And two is professionally, we probably use patch development, then QA, then production, right? So we would schedule that up in Patch Manager. One weekend we would do development. 2 weeks later we would do QA, and then 2 more weeks later we might do production, right? So if development starts having problems, right, we're gonna push back QA and production until we figure out what's going wrong. But if they run it smooth in development, then QA automatically get patched 2 weeks. Then we usually have automated tests to run. Okay, that's working good. Then we run those same patches in production, right? And two is we can look at it. You can set up patch windows when you want those to run. Remember, we were talking about instance tags. So I got tags for development on each one of those EC2 and Windows. I got tags for QA, Windows, right? And I got tags for production. That way, when Patch Manager knows, it looks at the tags and knows when it can patch those boxes, right? So that's some stuff about it. So you see the sequel, it's trying to patch on this one. I just took this out of documentation in Windows. It tells you the patch server is 2019, right? SQL Manager, the Patch Manager, right? And the maintenance window. So in your instance boxes, you got to have a way to get out to the internet because a lot of times it gets the patches from the from the internet, right? So if you're on a private subnet, you got to have your NAT gateway on the public so it can get out to the internet and patch those. Two is you can do a lot of times I do an endpoint. It's called an endpoint. I usually do an endpoint to a S3 bucket or endpoint to a gateway. That means it stays on the Amazon network, right? So why would I do that? It's more secure, but it costs, right? So each one of those. JM in the house, one of my day ones. Let's see what he got for me. Can Patch Manager first conduct a test? Oh, yeah, I said that most definitely. So, yeah, I don't know if you heard that. So, yeah, we were testing in development where the developers are at JM. So, my instances have development. So, I would patch all the EC2s in development for 2 weeks that run. Then I would schedule my QA, quality assurance. Then my second week, yeah, Jay, and we got to test this stuff, man. You trying to get us in trouble? No, that's a good try. I always test in non-production, man. So, I'm old, man. I ain't trying to get fired. I ain't got much time left, Jay. Nah, we got to test in non-production. So, and we'll look at that. We look at the tags and some of the maintenance windows we can schedule. But yeah, we're definitely testing development first, then QA, then production at least. I worked some places that had development. What was that term? It was something. It was development. Then there was like a first test group, which is one person in each area. Then there was QA, quality assurance, where we can run our tests for our programs. Then there was model office, which was a copy of production. Then once that ran for 2 weeks, then we put it in production. But now that's a good question, JM. Now we never test in production, man. I never want to see. Yeah, we never test in production, right? When we put it in production, it's already test, right? We already got a package. You will see a distributor. We already got a package. We already know it's good to go. But that is actually a pack. We never test in production. Even though I see small companies do it all the time. We never, ever test in production, though. So, once again, Patch Manager. Got the system, the maintenance windows when we want that to patch. Once again, usually most people do it at night. Like I said, our windows, I think from 12 midnight to 6. We do all our patching, all our whatever we're going to do. Right. So, two is we got to coordinate because we don't want patches stepping on each other. Sometimes I call it over patching. We patch the database, we patch the app server, we patch the Windows server, we patch the OS, we patched everything. You know, where with something breaks, you don't know what broke it, right? So now we trying to roll all these patches back out. So we try to be very deliberate. Like we might patch the web server one weekend, and sometimes if it's development, we might patch 4 days later, right? Because we want to patch deliberately in development in case something breaks and we can roll back. Once we figure out if everything's working together, then maybe in QA we'll patch everything at one time. But a lot of times we stop patching everything at one time in development because we couldn't figure out what broke it, right? So that's a little patch, not a game for you if you're not hip to it. So that's it. So let's check it out. Let's go to the little patch. I created a little VPC, little test area for us, right? So that's the patch manager. Let me see. Yep, let's do patching up. So that's the patching. EC2, I patched this already, so it tells you what's patched, what's not been patched, what's the criticality of the patch, right? If it's high, if it's a security high and it's being attacked in the wild, we might just push the high patch out, not to production. We might put it out to QA, test it real quick, test it hard because we don't want to get hacked, right? Because it's a high, right? Non-conformance, non-compliance. We just patched this morning, right? So, and these are the things that tells you your baseline, right? Run baseline, baseline to that. So that's patched now. Compliance. Everything's compliant, right? So if we're not up to date on our patches, it'll come out non-compliant, right? As a security professional, I want to come in and look at this part, or I have jobs that run that'll send me an email if something's not in compliant, meaning we're not up to date on the version of Amazon EC2 or something, right? So this, from a security standpoint, we looks at that. From an operational standpoint too, you need to know that, right? So those are the patches and compliance. Let me see what my man Calvin Henderson says. The barbecue was tasty. The coats are getting toe up. So we was down by 14 and wasn't looking good. So barbecue was tasty. Do you also patch high production first and still be able to provide high availability? No. Usually what we do is from that is called blue green or canary testing. Yeah, sometimes we do that, JM. Big organization does it. Where I do is we're not that big, right? But yeah, what Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, they have resources around the world. So what Facebook does is they'll say, go patch Chile, right? So Chile be running some code. That's called blue green. So they want to run two different versions. So they run the new version because sometimes when you put it in a global organization and it starts communicating around the globe, that's even different than communicating over two data centers, James. So that's an excellent question. It's called blue green. So yeah, you can definitely do that. And with AWS is set up to do that. So I can have my patch manager. Once again, though, I have to have my tags right. I got a small production in Chile. I can test in Chile, make sure it's okay, then start rolling it around the globe. And that's what Facebook does. Last time I checked, Facebook has 43,000 servers around the world, right? So they roll it out to different countries and even different cities, right? That's how good they are. But now, Jim, you can definitely do that. It's called blue-green testing. I've never worked in any place that big, right? So we're going to do a lab probably in a couple of weeks where I actually do that for Java, where it's going to be in 3 different data centers, where I roll it out to one data center and test it. Then once it's passed, I can hit a button. Then it rolls to the other data centers, right? But it's called blue-green testing. But yeah, you can definitely keep it high availability because in Amazon, I could say roll out to one data center and the other 2 data centers are up running the old code, right? So if something happens to the new code, I just cut the DNS off to the new code. It's going to fail over to the old code in those 2 data centers, right? But yeah, you can definitely do that in high availability. Let me know if that makes sense, JM. I was kind of rambling a little bit with that. Patch everything to develop a patch. That is wrong, Mr. Calvin. We cannot be doing extra work because if you break stuff in production, I've seen people get walked out of employment like that. You break production. I've seen the president. True story. I've been cussed out by a 2-star general because we broke production. That was like 2005 though. Calvin, you got to be careful with that. Shout out to that though. You're a Coast fan. Mighty Ice was supposed to be there so far. He's seen your team not sure what the question because the answer does not seem. That is correct, Calvin. We didn't do our due diligence. We didn't do a blue-green test on that, Calvin. We should have tested a little more in production and rolled Matty Ice back and got somebody else, man. Let's get Lamar. He's not happy, man. Let's just give him $250 million to Lamar. And let's try that. But nah, shout out to Calvin. Give me a shout out, JM. Let me know if that makes sense. But yeah, so the patch manager. So you can patch baselines too. These are the different operating systems: SUSE, Ubuntu, Rocky. Shout out to Amazon. They got you a flavor for everything, right? So this is the newest baseline. So you can roll these out in different segments, right? So configuring the patch. So once again, you can enter the instance tags, and that's what we would do, right? We would put a name here. Then on each one of the servers, we would call test. I think I usually have PBO. We're gonna do this in another lab. Web development, right? So we just gonna patch the web servers in development right before it get rolled out. We're gonna do existing windows, create a new window, so I can create a new testing window. Crime, what time I want to run. This is a one-time window. How long does it have to finish, right? So this would be the test windows. And like JM said, this is where I can say, okay, just test my web development. This is my windows. This is how long I got to test it, right? And 2 is I could test it for a certain user, right? So I can have a user. This is my European user that owns my European VPC. And inside there, I have web dev just for my Europe user, right? So if we were trying to run blue-green testing around the world, we could configure patching, right, to handle that, right? So and 2 is that's what I've been labbing on, trying to work on my game. Once again, I'm gonna sit for the sysops, and there's actually 3 labs you have to do it. Shout out to JB, he passed it. So once again, I got 4 certs, so I'm trying to add to my cert game and get really good at AWS. We talked about it. I'm 55. I'll be 55 coming up, so I got another 10 years. So I got to give me some 10-year skills, right? So this is gonna take me. So we can configure the patch, and once again, our PBO web development, we can set up a maintenance window when we want that to happen, usually from 12 to 6 a.m., right? Our 6-hour windows at night to do all our backups, do our patching, right? We can scan and install or just scan only. So a lot of times before we do it, we just scan only to see. It'll tell us what it would have passed in what order and if it thinks it would have got done, right? So that's kind of how we test our window to make sure we feel good about it. So that's the patching, right? So distributor capability system manager helps you package, publish software to AWS. You can package and publish your own software or find AWS provided software package, such as AWS Cloud Watch Agent, or you can use third party, right? So a lot of times if you get an RPM, shout out to Keepy Tech, he sends me an RPM package that he thinks is cool, I think is good, right? I can get package it up and use that package window, right? And the distributor actually packages up WAR, RPM. There's PKRs package. There's a couple ways to zip them up, really, and package them. You can package one package with many platforms, right? Windows, Ubuntu, right? So this is getting. So when you talk about patch, that's something Amazon is responsible for. You just saying when you want that installed. When you use distributor, this is usually third-party packages that you're going to package up and put on your server, like Trend Micro. If I want to get some new security product, right, I can get an RPM package and get that pushed out to each individual EC2 or Windows, right? So that's it. So that's what we were actually going through. I just wanted to touch on that. I've been doing, once again, labbing a little bit. So let's look at that. Just labbing a little bit. So I was just hitting on each one of those. And this week, I'm going to really try to focus and build labs and stuff on each one of those, get a little better, get ready. Once again, I work in compliance mostly. So I look at this from a compliance standpoint. Do they have it set up? We look before FedRAMP Hot. Is that particular service able to run the data we're using, right? I do a lot of IRS work, HIPAA work, right? Just because you can do it in AWS doesn't mean that compliance will let you do that, right? So you got to make sure those services are approved to work on certain parts of data, right? So see what my man JM said. Yep, makes sense. I guess some organization can also do announce outages if their services. Oh yeah, too. Yeah, we put you seen it. It's like this patch needs to go out now. We shut down this services. It's gonna be offline, right? So then we put on our DNS page, right? We put our services down page, then have the DNS, right? Just point to that web page, and in the back, right? We running state manager, run manager, distributor. What we need to do to get that pushed out in the ASAP way, right? So you are correct. So sometimes you're right. The service just has to go down because there's a bug and it needs to be fixed immediately. And the data behind is getting messed up, right? I've seen custom development where, this something happened. The data stop. The more they use it, the more the database get messed up, right? So we would shut it down, put a service down page, and in the back work on it, right? Push out new code, push out new services. Maybe Amazon was like, oh, we forgot to do something in the Amazon Linux. Push this out, right? So we would do a state package of it and run it on all the instances, right? So, hey man, patch is life, of course. Sarcasm is all over the comments I made. Facts. I was born and raised in Raiders fan. I gave up them 12 years ago when they stopped being competitive. I cannot support once decade try to. No, I feel you, and I'm spoiled, man, through the Peyton Manning years, man, and even through the Luck years before we let him get his liver tore up. We were just always in the hunt, man. We were good for about 15-year period. So I just took that for granted, Calvin, where I'm like, oh, we're gonna be good all the time. That is incorrect, right? So we were just killing it. Yo, salute to the fridge. We just was going over a system manager in AWS. Everybody know I'm trying to get my AWS search. So we went over fleet manager, manager compliance, manager inventory. We skip hybrid. It's just actually putting the agent on your on-prem, piping that back. Session manager, run manager, state, package, and patch and distributor, right? So those things we were hooking on. So are those services, would they be considered platform as a service or infrastructure as a service? Now these really are SaaS as a service. Platform, usually you still got to deal with the OS behind the scene. These are actually software as a service because I'm just clicking on them. I don't control the hardware. I don't control the platform. I don't control the infrastructure. So even platform as a service, I'm not at the Unix level, but I'm still dealing with the Tomcat or a certain platform like that. Or I'm trying to think of one, Apache, Tomcat, WebLogic. So even that platform, I'm dealing with the OS, just not patching OS. No, these are software as a service, JM. You just click on them, they work, right? You're going to get a nice bill for AWS for using them, but no, it's software as a service because I'm not touching anything, right? Infrastructure, mean I'm on the raw bare metal. Shout out to Tam. She's about their bare metal. Platform means, okay, the Linux and Windows are on it. I'm just dealing with the Apache on top. I'm not dealing with the OS or the metal. This is on top. I click the button, session manager work. I don't do anything. So it's straight software as a service, JM. I think that's all I got. I'll drop the link if anybody want to come up. But yeah, so that's it. Like I said, my team was getting destroyed. I don't think we're gonna be good, so I'm just gonna do I'm just gonna do live stream 3 p.m. on Sunday, so then I won't think about my team getting beat up. So I can give you my give you my AWS skills, so I don't have to worry about my team getting beat up. But that's it. And once again, we're gonna start touching more on the individual services. Then we're gonna start putting those together. What do I mean when I put those together? Is as an engineering, we're gonna stand up a web server connected to a DynamoDB service through a JDBC connector because I'm a Java guy. And how would you managing that, right? Because now we're talking about managing the environment, just not a service, right? Because a lot of times you deal with the services, cool, but when you stitch them all together, you could be struggling like, okay, why is my app server not connected to my database, right? We looked at them individually, but in the real world, they got to work together, right? when you click that button, it's going to go through the web server, app server, and insert into a database. So is it because I'm on a public subnet, private subnet? I'm trying to use the AWS network. Did it get rerouted to the wrong internet, right? So then we're going to start doing those as projects, right? So, and two is that's how you get skills to get a job, right? People want to know, have you did a project in production or a production level project, right? And what does that really look like? Okay. You want some Security Plus? Let me know what you want. I probably will return a Security Plus. The reason why is I know everybody's looking into that and wants to get that certification. I did it more as a lecture. Shout out to Tech G. He's doing practice exams. Shout out to Master IT. He actually has a course. You gotta dig into your pocket, right? So there's a lot of people that was touching that a little more than me, JM. So let me know. I was doing it more as a lecture, so I might go back to lecturing that. And two is I might combine them because a lot of those subjects, right? When you talk about, we talked about VM in there, we talked about instances, right? EC2 really was a VM in the cloud, right? So I can actually combine those two. And I already have script. I'm currently learning JavaScript at the moment. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna start doing Java. I might do a little Java on there. Shout out to Savage Scientist. I think he's doing C# on his channel. He's doing C# class. I think he did C# in 28 days. I missed that. Was probably good. Just check us out on the replay, Casual Economist. I'm glad you could join us. How's your JavaScript coming, Jay? And my first love is programming, man. I'm probably gonna do a little Java programming, probably start at the beginning of the year. And two is just once again lump it all together because when you do a Java, how do you deploy it? And part of AWS is what DevOps, right? Development operations. How do you check the code, run these services, right, to manage that code and service that code? How do you push it out? How do you patch it? How do you patch the Apache that code is in, right? These are the services you use to do that, right? So you put it all together and stitch it together, right? And that's when you start making the bag, right? That's when you start being a cloud engineer, right? This is how you be cloud DevOps, right? Cloud DevSecOps. There's just so many, jobs out there. So my thing too is I'm probably gonna start hopefully doing more DevOps. That's the cert I'm really shooting for is the professional DevOps in AWS. So I'm taking a smaller search to work my way up to DevOps. Well, I could have studied for the DevOps, but I think I learned a lot, and I'm more of a step guy, a process guy. So that's why I started at the beginning. I did practitioner. I got the architect associate. I got the developer associate. I got the security specialty. Now I'm working on the SysOps. Then I'll do the architect professional. Then I'll try to take the professional DevOps, right? Then at the end, I want to take the specialty database. And the one I'm going to struggle with is the networking in AWS. Shout out to Dewan. He actually works for AWS, but networking. And when you talk about networking, right, you got VPCs in different countries, right? How do you make it look like one? You could do VPC peering and route from one VPC in Europe to VPC in Cali, right? When you talk about networking. So making all that right and get my skills up, right? So I can be a DevSecOps engineer in the future, right? I think I'm gonna move from compliance to engineering. So I kind of miss building stuff. So good. I like CSS. I would tend a full stack. We development coding boot camp. So good luck with that. Which stack are you going for? Java, C#? Shout out to Tam. She's on, I forgot which one she's on. There's so many. PHP. Oh, she named two that are super hot. So yeah, there's a lot. What's gonna be your stack, JM? What's up, bro? Been trying to learn a little Java lately. I use OwnGM quite a bit in IAM. It's based on Java, so trying to get more familiar with the language. That's cool. I need to go check into that, right? Yeah, I'm just doing Java. I usually do the stack I usually do is old. I usually do Java, Spring, Hibernate. Hibernate Connect helps you connect to the database. Spring helps you with transaction and that kind of business logic. How does one insert update looks like one track transaction? If one of them fails, it'll roll all three of those back up. Like if you got a bank account, if you're doing accounts payable and accounts receivable, right? If you get accounts payable insert account and receivable fails, you want to roll AP back, right? Because that's one transaction together. You don't want part of your books to be posted and part of them not, right? The transaction failed, then right, then your books are out of balance, right? So how do you handle transactions of 3 or 4 inserts or updates, right? Then if one fails, rolls them back, right? So that's Spring in Java and Hibernate going to the database. Angular is pretty popular, so I probably do Angular, those two, Java, do Oracle and DynamoDB as my databases, right? So I can get a little better. So that's going to be my stack. Shout out to Citizen Lou because I think he switched over to Java at his job. Java C++, some Python, Ruby on Rails, Ajax. Yeah, that's shout out. We'll connect up there because I think that's what I'm gonna start doing. I'm gonna start doing a little more Java once again, using Elastic Beanstalk inside of AWS to upload it and manage that. Right, load to CSS. So I think so. Yeah, I think I do a little Ajax. Well, I used to do a little Ajax, so I'm familiar with that. A lot of times too, it's built into Angular, right? So it's really doing Ajax for you. So let me know. I'm just kind of wrapping it up. I'm gonna go see how bad the coastlaws gonna make me grumpy. Then once again, I've been labbing every day, and I'm lab a little more. And once again, I know I'm just kind of touching on. I'm getting comfortable going into the console while we're on the live. Let's look at that EC2 instance real quick. We had timed out, which was cool. Let's go back to the fleet. Let's go back to session. Start a session. So these are our 2 instances we have in 2 different data centers. To use Visual Code when you program, I do not. I usually use now you're gonna make me forget. I usually use Eclipse. It's an IDE, and if you pay, it gives you the Spring Java thing. I usually use Eclipse. I'm trying to figure out my next IDE I want to use. I haven't used Eclipse probably in 3 years, but when I was doing Eclipse. They had some paid ones that seem to be a little easier. I might try to pick up because now too is they actually have services. So when you deploy to AWS inside your Java, if you're trying to do a read replica or some other stuff, your Java code knows you're in the cloud, so it starts making determinations and using services it knows are available in the cloud. So I'm trying to figure out what my new IDE is going to be, JM. I'm thinking Eclipse because I'm old and that's what I've always used, but I don't know. There's so many better ways to do it. So once again, let me make this a little bigger. We're just gonna look at a few services. Oh, there it is. I made it super big for me because I'm old. PS minus EF, right? So those are the services. HTTPD, that's the website. That's the Apache running. We're gonna do pipe grep dash I. Let's do HTTPD. HTTPD is the Apache services running in the background, right? So those are it. Those are the services we know that's running. A lot of times, if you're trying to figure out something running, you want to go in there, right? Those are services. So let's look at ID. Who are we? Since we're in the SSM, that's what we're using in session. They have a default SSM user. It shows you what group you're in. All right. So, which is not a bad thing. So, it shows you the group. What else did I want to do? Let's do netstat A. What ports do we have open? So tells you what's connected, what's streaming. I think those are ports ID. All right, so streaming, what ports, what's running. So system journal, so all that's cool. Once again, I used to be a web admin years ago, so it's been a long time since he left me, right? So how does that move, right? And things, there's certain things as a web admin that you would look at, right? Is the Apache running? Two is if I had Tomcat, Once again, what services? Uh, yeah, my is what disc are mounted. All right. When I used to work at DOD, we were having certain discs mounted. So if some wasn't mounted for me to get a cert or look at a certain thing, or that C group wasn't mounted, right? So I would look at certain, okay, is my, because a lot of times you're on the sand and you're mounting disc underneath that they're carving up, right? So DF minus A, look at my disc space, what's percentage of it, too. So that's a few things. Two is, do I got disk space or my services running right? So if you're on, shout out to Kev Tech. So if you're on a help desk, those are some things you would look at. 3 or 4 commands in your bag you will use. They're teaching us VS Code. Is that used in the real world? Visual Code, I think so. I don't do a lot of I think Visual Code is used a lot more for C sharp. So I don't know, JM. I think so. I've heard of it where I work, but I didn't really the C sharp guys, I just kind of left them alone, to be honest. So I don't know. I need to check on that, JM. Do you use tools also to check for malicious services running? Yeah, I would do that, JM. And part of that is, and we're gonna start mounting that is I would set up automatic jobs. Um, I would set up automated jobs. What I would do is once I set this service up, ES minus EF is those services. You got the workers. All right. So I would put these in a file or a database. Then every hour, if there's a service that's different than what's on here, I would shoot an email to the security team, right? So that's one way how I would look for malicious services. But two is a lot of times when you're on stuff like FireEye, Norton, I'm trying to think of some of the big stuff. They're part of their services when you buy those endpoints, they're gonna look for malicious services for me, especially FireEye. FireEye, it knows the majority of malicious services, right? Because it's got a worldwide center where it puts all the viruses, malicious stuff, malware. So it knows the names of all those JM. So when you run FireEye, it's going to actually do that work for you. That's why you pay all that money for you, right? One of the clients I used to work for, they paid FireEye was like $400,000, man. That's what you pay $400,000 for. Yep, you could do Snort. The Snort's pretty good, but once again, if you're a professional, because Snort's updated by the community, they do have you can pay extra money to get their advanced file. But once again, FireEye has that on steroids. But yeah, you can actually do that in Snort. I actually might do that as a lab, JM. Hook up with Snort, hook up with some of the open source stuff that's used in real life. If you're a smaller company, a mid-sized company, you don't have money, Snort actually is a great tool for that. And actually, when there was the Kaseya's hacked, and somebody actually sold FireEye's red team tools. Shout out to Gabe. They actually gave you a Snort file to look for their red team tools in case a hacker was using them. So I would definitely pick Snort on there because I think all the big vendors are actually using Snort underneath a lot of their files, or they train a lot of guys on Snort before they move up to FireEye JM. So no, Snort is actually a great tool. So that's all I have for today. Y'all see me out there, go look at some of my older videos. I did a great one on Uber. Was Uber got hacked last week? I think it was Uber. Yeah, it was Uber. So go check them out. They had a very disrespectful teenager that hacked them. he was disrespectful. Shout out to Miss Patrice. She said, why shouldn't we hire the teenager if he was that good? I said, because he was disrespectful, man. He got on people's Slack and told them he was the hacker, told them they sucked. So I'm not hiring anybody that's going to embarrass me. Shout out to the team, though. He has some skills, but if you're trying to get a job, you can't embarrass the people you're going to ask for a job. It doesn't work like that. But nah, shout out to him, though. He did show some advanced techniques. He did a little brute force with the MFA. He kept bothering the person at 1 a.m. so they accepted his MFA request. He sent them like 50 requests in an hour. They just they just gave up and accepted him. Then that allowed him to hack into their environment, though. So shout out to Kid. But if you're looking for a job, you can't embarrass the people you try to get a job from, though. Shout out to him, though. That's all I got. Everybody have a great weekend. It's running down. Monday's almost here, and everybody had a great week. It might be difficult for him to get job now that with that record. The thing is though is they haven't caught him yet, so he he's on there. He didn't divulge who he was. Now I'm sure they own him. I'm sure they put a police report. I'm sure the FBI is on him, but they haven't caught him yet. JM, I don't think they caught him. I need to do a little. Yesterday they ain't caught him. I know, so they might not catch him. Man, he seems to have a few advanced skills. So he might be going through the dark web, jumping through a servers, coming from Alaska, going through about 20 servers. So they might not get him, JM. He seems to be pretty knowledgeable. I just, like I said, I didn't like his gloating. I didn't like his gloating, but he seemed to be knowledgeable. Once again, though, me and Gabe talk about it. The Script Kitty, those tools are so good now. You get advanced capabilities without knowing a lot about the tools, right? So you click on it, they give you phishing, they give you ransomware, right? So you get these high-powered tools, and you don't need to know a lot, have to know a lot of knowledge about the tools, right, to take over a company. So that's definitely, I guess, a problem. It's a problem for the security people. So once again, I'm out. Everybody have a nice Sunday. Like I said, I'm about to go in and relax, check a game out, get back on these labs. Like I said, I've been working on my lab game, labbing real hard. Like I said, hopefully you're going to take that SysOp the middle of next month, then follow it up with the professional architect AWS, trying to get a little of that AWS life and just get comfortable in there. JM, I've been thinking about taking a AWS boot camp a little bit. I've been debating. So we will see. Like I said, I'm getting comfortable. I know I'm gonna put some stuff that I use kind of in a faux production. I'll probably do me a website, set up a few things to have running. And when it breaks, that's when you figure out how good you are when stuff breaks, right? So that's always the interesting part, right? So I definitely need to get a little better, right, on that. That's all I got. Everybody have a great week coming up. Let's get it.